Hello, everybody. You're watching the Mike Nelson Show. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure to subscribe right now so you don't miss out on any of my big interviews. I want to thank those that have already subscribed. To almost 1,000 of you around the world have already subscribed, which is pretty awesome. So I want to thank everybody for their support. Today, I got a pretty cool guest. I got Barry Privett of Carbon Leaf. How you doing today, Barry?
I'm good, Mike. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Of course, it's summertime here in LA, so it's pretty hot.
Yeah, it's we had a week of rain straight here, and now it's kind of breaking a little bit, but it's pretty mild over here in Virginia, so can't complain.
So Barry, when did your musical journey kind of kick off? I always ask this to my guests. When did kind of music kind of enter your life?
When did it enter my life? In dribs and drabs, really. I was more like a movie kid when I was younger and all, and then so my musical tastes growing up were probably just your typical whatever was on the radio, and then you had your kind of favorites growing up. But I mean, there wasn't tons of music playing in our house and all, so it's just kind of stuff that you would pick up. And then when I was in college, one of the guys I had met, played acoustic guitar, and we ended up playing a few songs one night, and then he paired up with a few other guys, and then circled back around, and we just started playing music. So I didn't have a whole lot of deep knowledge, probably the least of anybody in the band when we kind of got going. And so really my musical journey kind of kicked in high gear when I actually joined a band, when I was 20 or whatever. So
Now, what was that first band? Was that already Carbon Leaf, or were you kind of already playing?
no, it was Carbon Leaf. I think Terry, the guy I mentioned before, the guitarist, Carbon Leaf's guitarist, he had been in like three high school bands, so he was pretty seasoned. And and no, so that was the only thing that I joined. And then when we graduated from college, we kind of just took a summer, to take some temporary jobs, and then, like we called each other and said, I don't know, do you want to get this thing back together seriously? And so we decided to relocate and just kind of make a go of it, and just kind of kept going. So yeah, first and only band. It's my first and last band, put it that way.
Now, this is like in the '90s, right? A very interesting time in music, to say the least. Talk to me a little bit about that. I wasn't around yet. I was born in '96. So how was it like back then?
Yeah, right. So we were in school in 89, 90, 91, 92, 93. And music was changing pretty hard. I mean, I remember just from, this is just using the college as kind of our marker, since it was kind of like just before the band started and just after. But you had a real confluence of like styles. You had the jam band scene, with Fish and the Grateful Dead, and then you had kind of the more of the mainstream, of it, strains from like Dave Matthews Band, and then Hootie and the Blowfish, on one side of kind of like popular music. And then but then you had kind of like Guns N' Roses was still like super, like right in the prime, and the hair metal bands were kind of still a thing. And then but then Nirvana broke, and Pearl Jam broke, and the tide changed within that. But in the middle, in between those bookends, you just had the B-52s, and you had REM, and you just had a lot of different sounds, kind of like the way it was like in the early 80s, where you just had a lot of different interesting stuff. Um, so there was a lot to choose from, when we were forming our musical opinion. There was just a lot to kind of reach for and try and see what you wanted to become.
Did you guys kind of take that into account when you were forming this band, or did you guys kind of just do what you wanted? Like what was that feeling for you?
So when we started, I mean, we didn't have any ambitions when we started, other than just to kind of get together and play. And so, of course, you just gravitate towards covers, and our covers, they ran the gamut from all of that I just mentioned, whether it was, classic rock or jam band, or or alternative stuff. So we didn't really have a vision. We were just playing. And then after, you know I would say after like 5 years, when we got out of school and we did that kind of thing for a little while, we were like, this isn't really doing it for us anymore. And that's when we started to kind of begin our journey of writing songs. And that was bumpy. And we had a fan base for what we were when we started, because we were kind of like just a cover band, and when we decided to stop being a cover band and start playing our own music, we lost all those people, and we had to rebuild. And that took a long time, but somehow we managed to do it enough to break out of that and get fans into what we were doing originally. So, but it took us a while to find what worked for us. Took a couple of albums and kind of went from just everything in the kitchen sink to, oh, okay, there's a little bit of an acoustic folk side to this kind of rock band thing that we're doing. And um, it's a it's an interesting thing. Some bands, they have a sound out of the box, and they gel and everybody's in line. And we didn't really have that. It took us a while to kind of figure it out. So
Now with Carbon Leaf, you guys kind of started recording then in the second half of the 90s. It was already music was already changing in that second half, because back in those days music changed every 5, 10 years. So what was the challenge of, now the second half of the 90s, all these grunge bands are kind of gone and you guys are still out there?
we weren't a grunge band, so that helped.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like,
um,
a lot of bands, there wasn't a lot of bands anymore second half of the 90s,
oh yeah,
bands
you're
were kind of
right.
just,
So I mean, that's a great point, because we used to do a lot of business early on. If you were hired for a private party, whether it was at a school or any function, it was a live band. But then things started shifting towards DJ, um, house music. That became
yeah.
kind of a thing. And then yeah, the band business, kind of evaporated outside of the schools, and so without that, we were like, well, let's just start doing what we should be doing anyway, which is getting into the cities and booking clubs. And that took a long time to get going. So we would go door to door and just hand out press kits the old school way, because we didn't have an agent, we didn't have a manager. We were just out there, just door to door salesman, trying to get any gig we could. So, but there was still a healthy business for live music in that respect, just not on that party circuit.
So you talk about how you guys, didn't have an agent and a manager, but you guys, you must have really loved doing this to continue. I think that's what you have. That's true, right? For music, you got to really love it to keep it going like that, right?
Yeah, you got to get along. You got to kind of be motivated to see what's around the corner. And so yeah, it's funny. Sometimes we'll just sit there and go, gosh, it's surprising that we did keep going, because there was plenty of times and plenty of good reasons to quit. And maybe maybe justifiably so, but for whatever reason, we kept going. There was a couple of moments where we felt like we were kind of at the end of we were kind of there, and was like, well, and then something would happen, a little bump, and that would kind of drive you forward and open a few doors. And that's really kind of what typified our career. We weren't like this. We're kind of like, well, okay, and, and then, you know, so yeah, it's just been a journey, and we get along. We learn to get along. We learn to kind of, when you're in a band and you're young guys, everybody's right, you know what I mean? And everybody's wants to get their way. But, you know, if you can get through that and talk through that and understand what it means to listen to each other, and then know, like, how important is this to you? And should I just trust you, and we'll do it your way and we'll see. And you're always, you know, seeing what's right and what's wrong. And as long as you don't have an ego about that, then I think it's kind of a key to the longevity.
Now, You guys have recorded now 15 albums. Is that surprising to you?
Yeah, I wish it was more, really. But it is hard to believe, 15 albums and then I think 21 recorded projects total with this one coming up included. And I wish I could say they get easier and easier, but they they don't. Yeah.
Now, talk to me a little bit about the one that's coming up. Time is a Playground. I got a chance to listen to it. It sounds great. Talk to me more
Thanks.
about it.
Yeah, yeah. So this has been, kind of 4 years in the making. We launched this kind of we announced it, right at the start of the pandemic, and not realizing what we were getting into, and so with the pandemic, it kind of really knocked us off schedule considerably, with a ripple effect. So um, I even, when I thought I was going to be able to sit down and start writing it, that wouldn't come for like really in earnest for like another year and a year and a half, to get kind of through the pandemic. So that was, a little strange, that it's been so long. But the um, the album itself is really just a rumination on time. I mean, I think every single song specifically thematically deals with some aspect of considering time and where we are on the timeline, and where where I am or where the band is, on that timeline compared to, where you were when you were younger, and kind of how your perspective shifts. And we wanted to use a mix of material in our demo catalog that was uh older demos, some pieces of music that we pulled from, maybe it could be 10 or 15 years ago. I went through all our catalog of demos. We have a bunch of unfinished stuff. I have like 1,000 pieces of music, in various stages. And I just went through and I just pulled things that spoke to me, or I pulled some stuff that I had worked on over the years, but then abandoned, but still really loved. I just couldn't get into the story. And I finally just said, I'm going to pull these together, and then we're going to add in some very new stuff. So the album really has a representation of really, a span of almost 2 decades, of ideas that we finished in 2023 and 24. So, it's just kind of a fun way to pull into the vault and then contemporize something, and just kind of speaks to how time is linear, but it's also kind of amorphous, and it can kind of just shift about.
Now, you mentioned that you guys have a lot of like unfinished music still then that you haven't even released yet, that it could potentially get released in the coming years.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, we have, like I said, there's probably, 900 to 1,000, not fully finished songs, but pieces of music that still need my part, lyrics and melody and all that, and the idea. So, you know, um, if the guys have an idea, they'll put it down and they'll send it to me, and then I'll kind of organize it and listen to it and kind of keep it in the back of my mind. And obviously we write together, you know, as well. So between those two things, there's no lack of material. There's just what it is the lack of time
Yeah.
to produce that. So it's like part of the album is like, how much can we do with the time we have, and what's important, and how are you going to prioritize, all those pieces? How are you going to assemble those disparate parts into what amounts to your life and your life's work?
Now, you mentioned when you get a piece of music from your bandmates, you add your own, lyrics. Where do you get inspiration to kind of, write these songs?
Yeah, I mean, obviously always there's always some kind of, handle relationship wise that you can reach for. But you know, I try to cue off of the music uh, to look for a theme or an image that sticks in my head based on what I'm hearing. You know, really just it's kind of like you're just the music's almost like a I don't know what's a good metaphor, but it's maybe it's just well it's like a painting, but it's missing some your part. And so you're just looking at this painting and you're trying to figure out how you fit into it. And so I will, you know, I'll put together a playlist and I'll just put it in the background if I'm driving or if I'm in the kitchen and, you know, subconsciously start thinking about it. And then once I have a foothold or two, then I can really sit down and free write and get a lot of material. And then from there, I'll kind of craft. You'll pull out what really should be there, and then get rid of the rest. You know. So,
Yeah, and also with writing music as a how you guys finally get together. It must be like a collaborative effort, right? 'Cause, you guys have such a unique sound with so many different aspects of your music. I mean, everybody must eventually kind of give their little piece, right? Once it's finally out there.
yeah, for sure. You know, we pride ourselves in being a band, and it's not just a singer songwriter that's being like, all right, this is what we're doing. I mean, there's some of that because I do the words and the melody and you know there's a little bit of direction there, but you know all the guys are good at what they do. Bass, drums, guitars, and if Carter floats me a little something that he wrote on the guitar and I come up with an idea, then I will take it back to the band and we'll flesh it out. You know, we'll add rhythm to it, or they'll be like, oh well, you know, this part's cool, but maybe people aren't so much into this part, so we'll change it. You know, and so from there we collaborate, and then the guys put their signature on it. Sometimes I'm like very particular about what I'm hearing, and they'll have to hear me out about, do this thing because it's the coolest hook. um and then other times it's just like I don't know what to do with this. What's your instinct, so we go back and forth like that, and we do a pretty good job at it.
Now, I mentioned I saw something on your bio that caught my eye where you mentioned that, people say that people don't listen to records anymore. Talk to me about, the challenges, as a musician now, with that, with that idea.
Well, we've the last full record we released, full record meaning like a 12 song, was probably 10 years ago. So but then we released, two 5 song EPs, and then, a live record and all that stuff. So still releasing stuff, but the long form, I don't know. I mean, I still love that idea, and especially for this album. And to me, it feels like a, a a good listen from beginning to end, and instead of just a collection of songs. And really wanted to make it feel like it was this is a playlist, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Just keep
not
it
just
there. Yeah.
here's a playlist.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
time at the playground. And so I don't know what to expect when we release it, if people are going to just gravitate towards a song or two that's towards the top of the record and then not know the other deep cuts. I don't know what to expect there, but my challenge for this record was just to make something that thematically and lyrically had some meaning and weight and some thought-provoking stuff, but I also wanted it to sound really catchy. you know like I like it when music hits both those things. It's like, oh, this is like super hooky.
Hmm.
but it's
Yeah.
but it's got something there. That's where it makes me happy to write and perform every night, is something that can strike that balance.
Now you mentioned people gravitating toward a track. Is that kind of was that kind of what happened when the boxer, people ended up gravitating toward that and got on the radio? Was that a shock to you when that happened?
Well, we still had fans that knew like the whole album that song came from, and but it was the first time where uh a song kind of that was one of those pivotal points that I was talking about, where it felt like before the Boxer came out, we had released 4 albums, and yeah, your fans enjoyed it, but that was kind of it. And then yeah, then the Boxer became a kind of a single in some respects in some markets, and gave the band kind of a fresh perspective and new legs. um it's interesting, that for new fans, they'll assume that single is kind of like what you're all about. And the Boxer it's got this Irish lilt to it. It's got a penny whistle, and we were into some of that, but it wasn't all we did at the time. um so it was confusing to a lot of people, a lot of new people and all, because then we followed it up with Indian Summer, which had Life Less Ordinary, which was completely different from the Boxer, and kind of more of like a just bass driven pop hit, and so I think we've been confusing people for a long time about what we do. But what we do is just kind of like what you said. We kind of just we do kind of do what we want to do, and then hopefully that audience will find it.
Now, Carbon Leaf's going to be doing a lot of touring this year. Are you looking forward to that?
For sure. Yeah, there's a lot of work to do right now because we got the record coming out in a few weeks. Um, so this time of year is just always crazy for me. I'm supposed to be on vacation right now, but I'm in this bedroom with this makeshift desk right now, kind of like getting stuff done. But yeah, we look forward to it. It's kind of like we always get this kind of that back to school itch, in September. It's time to hit the road and um go cross country and back. It's a lot of fun to get out there, and especially if you've got something new to play and promote to people. Yeah.
So fans can expect to hear a lot of the new album on the tour then.
Well, yeah, we're not going to exhaust people. We'll play some of the songs. We'll play some of the songs. Um, we're just not quite sure yet what that plan is. We're getting together next week actually to kind of like, just work on the tour stuff, and we'll kind of see. So yeah, we'll definitely play some stuff, but we'll also kind of play our catalog too. So
Well, Barry, I want to thank you for your time today. It was great talking to you.
thanks, Mike. I appreciate the attention, and thanks for the good questions.
Appreciate it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure to subscribe to the channel.